The legend was older than any living species. It told of a world called Earth, a death world where life evolved in impossible conditions, where gravity was crushing, where weather was violent, where creatures were deadly. And from that world came a species called humans. The legend said they were the fiercest warriors in galactic history, that they fought wars that shook the stars, that they never surrendered, never forgot, never forgave. Then one day, they simply stopped. They withdrew to their death world. They powered down their ships. They went to sleep, waiting for a call that might never come. Most species dismissed the legend as myth, a story to frighten children, boogeyman tales for the young. But the legends persisted. And on forgotten worlds, in remote corners of the galaxy, ancient listening stations still monitored the stars. Their only purpose, listen for a human distress signal. The station was called Monitor Outpost 7. It sat on a barren moon, far from trade routes, far from anything important. No one remembered why it was built. No one visited. The equipment was old, the staff was small, and the work was boring. Vex was the newest technician. Young, curious, eager to prove himself. He spent his shift scanning frequencies, logging data, fighting sleep. His supervisor, an old Xylos named Grath, laughed at his enthusiasm. "You will learn," Grath said. "Nothing ever happens here. That is the point." Vex nodded, but he kept watching. One quiet shift, something changed. A faint signal appeared on his screen. Old. Weak. Barely there. Vex frowned and adjusted the scanners. The signal grew slightly clearer. He checked the frequency. It matched nothing in their records. He checked the origin. Deep space. A region labeled Quarantine Zone. Do not enter. He called Grath over. "Look at this." Grath studied the screen. His face slowly changed. That is impossible." "What is it?" Grath was quiet for a long moment. Then he spoke. "That frequency. I have seen it before. In old records. Very old." Vex waited. "It is human." The word hung in the air. Vex stared at the screen. "Human? Like the legends?" Grath nodded slowly. "Like the legends." The signal continued. Faint but steady. A call for help from somewhere deep in the Forbidden Zone. Vex's heart pounded. "What do we do?" Grath shook his head. "Nothing. We report it up the chain. They will ignore it. Everyone ignores human legends. But it is real. I can see it. Real or not, no one cares. The humans are gone. They have been gone for centuries." Vex watched the signal. It pulsed like a heartbeat. Like something alive, waiting. He could not ignore it. That night, alone in his quarters, Vex studied the signal's origin. He traced it back, through layers of interference, through years of drift. It came from a specific location. Coordinates in the Quarantine Zone. He pulled up records of that region. They were old. Classified. But he found something. A ship. A massive human ship, listed as lost centuries ago. Its last known position matched the signal's origin. The ship was still there. Still transmitting. Still waiting for someone to answer. Vex stared at the data. Somewhere out there, a human ship drifted in the darkness. Its crew long dead. Its systems failing. But its beacon still called for help. He thought about the legends. About the fierce warriors who never forgot. About the Armada that slept, waiting for a call. What would happen if someone answered? He did not know. But he knew he had to find out. Vex reported the signal the next morning. He stood before his supervisor, Grath, and the station commander, a stern Vorthan named Torek. He played the recording. Showed the data. Explained everything. Torek listened without expression. When Vex finished, he spoke. "Human legends. You brought me here for fairy tales." Vex blinked. "But the signal is real. I verified it myself." Torek waved a hand. "Old interference. Residual noise from ancient equipment. Nothing more. It matches human frequencies. I checked the records." Torek stood. His eyes were cold. "Listen to me, child. Humans are gone. They have been gone for centuries. Whatever signal you found is nothing. A ghost. A mistake." He walked toward the door. "Forget about it. Return to your duties." He left. Grath looked at Vex with something like pity. "I told you. No one cares." Vex stared at the screen. At the signal still pulsing. Still calling. He could not forget. That night, Vex studied the signal's origin. He traced it through layers of data, past interference, across years of drift. The source was clear. A specific set of coordinates in the quarantine zone. He pulled up records of that region. They were old, buried deep in archives. Classified, but not impossible to access for a curious technician. What he found made his heart stop. A human ship. Designation, **HCS Valiant**. Lost in battle centuries ago. Last known position matched the signal's origin exactly. The ship was never recovered. Never salvaged. It was simply gone. But its black box still transmitted. Still called for help. For centuries, it had waited for someone to answer. Vex stared at the data. The ship was out there, drifting in the darkness. Its crew long dead. Its systems failing. But its beacon still pulsed, patient and eternal. He made a decision. Getting to the quarantine zone was not easy. Vex used his savings to charter a small ship. He told no one where he was going. He simply left one night, slipping away from the station like a ghost. The journey took days. The zone was empty, forgotten, avoided by everyone. No trade routes. No colonies. Nothing. His ship's sensors scanned constantly, searching for the signal. Then he found it. A shape emerged from the darkness. Massive. Dark. Silent. The human ship. It was unlike anything Vex had seen. Larger than modern vessels. Built differently. Armor thick, weapons visible, design brutal and purposeful. It hung in space like a sleeping beast. Vex circled it slowly, recording everything. The ship was dead. No power. No life signs. Nothing moved. But its black box still transmitted. A faint pulse, over and over. Calling for help that never came. Vex felt something strange. Respect. Awe. Sadness. This ship had fought. Had died. Had waited centuries for rescue. He docked with it. Inside, the ship was frozen and dark. His suit lights showed corridors filled with debris. Signs of battle. Signs of death. He found the bridge. Skeletons sat at their stations, still wearing uniforms. The captain, still in his chair. They had died at their posts, doing their duty to the end. Vex stood among them, overwhelmed. Then he saw it. The emergency beacon control. A simple panel with a single button. He checked the logs. The beacon had transmitted for centuries. But it was weak. Old. Barely reaching anyone. It needed a boost. A signal strong enough to reach human space. Vex looked at the button. At the dead crew. At the ship that had waited so long. He thought about the legends. About the fierce warriors. About the Armada that slept. What would happen if he pressed it? He did not know. But he knew one thing. This ship deserved an answer. He pressed the button. The effect was immediate. The beacon's signal changed. Strengthened. Amplified. It shot out across the galaxy, piercing through interference, reaching toward distant human space. Vex watched his senses in awe. The signal was massive now. Impossible to ignore. He had done it. He had answered the call. Now he had to wait. He sat in the captain's chair, surrounded by the dead, and watched the stars. Somewhere out there, humans might be listening. And if the legends were true, they would come. The signal reached Earth at dawn. It traveled across vast distances, through dead space and living systems, past worlds that had forgotten humans existed. It was old and faint, but unmistakable. A human distress signal. On Earth, alarms began to sound. They were ancient alarms, installed centuries ago and never tested. No one alive had heard them. But they worked. Klaxons blared across military installations, waking soldiers who had slept for generations. In hidden bases across the solar system, lights flickered on. Doors slid open. Reactors hummed to life. Ships that had not moved in centuries began to stir. In a secret facility on the moon, suspended animation pods opened one by one. Soldiers sat up, blinking, confused. They had been young when they entered. Now they were old, but still alive. Still ready. A voice echoed through the facility. Emergency protocol activated. Distress signal received. All personnel report for duty. The soldiers looked at each other. No one spoke. They simply stood and began to prepare. On Earth, the council met in emergency session. Leaders from every nation gathered in a secure room. Screens showed the signal, the data, the implications. The Secretary-General spoke first. Someone activated an ancient distress beacon. One of our ships from the old wars. A general frowned. Which ship? The HCS Valiant. Lost in battle 3 centuries ago. Presumed destroyed. Silence. Another leader spoke. The Valiant? That ship is a legend. It fought in the First Galactic War. Held the line at the Battle of Dark Space. Everyone thought it was gone. Apparently not. Its black box survived. And someone found it. Who? Unknown. The signal was boosted recently. Someone wanted us to hear it. The room murmured with questions. No one had answers. The Secretary-General raised a hand. Silence fell. The protocol is clear, she said quietly. When a distress signal is received, we respond. That was the promise we made when we built this Armada. That was the promise we kept when we went to sleep. She looked around the room. We do not know who sent the signal. We do not know why. But we know one thing, a human ship is out there, and it needs us. She stood. Prepare the fleet. We move at dawn. Across human space, the Armada awoke. Ships emerged from hidden bases on asteroids, on moons, in the depths of gas giants. They were old, but they were powerful. Designed for war, built to last, maintained by automated systems for centuries. Thousands of vessels. Then tens of thousands. Each one powering up, running diagnostics, preparing for battle. Soldiers boarded their ships. Families said goodbye. Children watched from windows as parents left for duty they never expected to face. The news spread quickly. Humans were going to war. Or maybe not war. Maybe rescue. No one knew yet. But they were going. Admiral James Corbin stood on the bridge of the flagship, watching the fleet form up around him. He was old, one of the oldest active officers. He had served in the last war, centuries ago. He thought he would never see action again. He was wrong. His communications officer spoke. Admiral, all ships report ready. We await your orders. Corbin nodded slowly. Signal the fleet. We move to the coordinates of the Valiant's last known position. All ships, maximum speed. The fleet surged forward, thousands of vessels moving as one. Corbin looked at the stars ahead. Someone out there called for help, he murmured. We are coming. On the Valiant, Vex sat in the captain's chair, watching his senses. Days had passed. Nothing happened. He began to doubt. Maybe the legends were wrong. Maybe humans were gone. Maybe no one would come. Then his senses picked up something. Multiple contacts. At the edge of the system. Moving fast. Vex leaned forward, heart pounding. The contacts grew closer. Dozens. Hundreds. Thousands. Ships. Human ships. Emerging from warp, surrounding the system, filling the darkness with light. Vex stared in awe. They came, he whispered. They actually came. The human fleet surrounded the Valiant, weapons ready, scanners active. A communication channel opened. A calm human voice spoke. This is Admiral James Corbin of Earth Fleet. We received your signal. What is your situation? Vex opened his mouth to answer. And for the first time in centuries, a human fleet had answered a call for help. The ships appeared at the edge of the system like stars coming to life. Vex saw them on his senses first. Dozens of contacts. Then hundreds. Then thousands. His heart stopped. His hands froze on the controls. He ran to the viewport. They filled the darkness. Massive vessels, unlike anything in the modern galaxy. Sleek and deadly, weapons visible along every hull. They moved in perfect formation, surrounding the system, surrounding him. Vex stumbled backward. He had wanted answers. He had wanted to see if the legends were real. He had not expected this. The ships grew closer. Their weapons aimed directly at his small vessel. He was trapped, surrounded by an armada that had slept for centuries and now stared at him with cold, silent purpose. A communication channel opened. A calm human voice spoke. It was deep, steady, without anger or threat. You activated our beacon. Explain. Vex's mouth opened, but no words came. He tried again. I found a signal. An old distress call. I just wanted to see. He stopped, unable to continue. Silence on the channel. The human fleet waited, thousands of ships holding position, weapons ready. Then the voice spoke again. Softer this time. You answered a call for help. From a ship that died centuries ago. Vex nodded, even though no one could see him. Yes. I did not know. I did not understand. I just wanted to help. Silence. Vex waited, heart pounding, certain he was about to die. Then the voice returned. Stand by. Minutes passed. They felt like hours. Vex sat in the small ship, surrounded by human vessels. He could see them through every window, massive and silent, waiting. He thought about his family, his friends, his boring job at the monitoring station. He thought about how he had always wanted adventure, always wanted to see something real. Now he had found it, and he might die because of it. The communication channel opened again. "This is Admiral James Corbin of Earth Fleet." The voice was different now. Warmer. Almost kind. "We have reviewed your logs, your transmissions, your journey here." Vex waited. "You found our ship. You answered its call. You boosted its signal so we could hear it." A pause. "You did not have to do that. You could have ignored it. Passed by. No one would have known." Vex found his voice. The ship was crying for help. 4 centuries. I could not ignore it. Silence. Then the Admiral spoke again. "No. You could not. Neither could we." The weapons on the human ships powered down. Vex watched in disbelief as thousands of vessels lowered their defenses. They were no longer targeting him. They were simply waiting. A smaller ship detached from the flagship and approached. It docked with the Valiant, and moments later, a hatch opened. A human walked through. He was tall, with gray hair and a face marked by age. He wore a simple uniform with medals on the chest. His eyes were kind but tired. "Admiral Corbin," he said, extending a hand. Vex shook it uncertainly. "I am Vex." Corbin looked around at the bridge. At the dead crew. At the centuries of dust. "You found them," he said quietly. "You found our people." Vex nodded. "They died at their posts, doing their duty." Corbin walked to the captain's chair. He placed a hand on it gently. "I knew this ship," he said. "I knew its captain. We served together, long ago." Vex stared. "You are that old?" Corbin smiled slightly. "I am old. But humans remember. We always remember." They stood together in the silent ship, surrounded by the dead. Corbin spoke again. "You answered a call for help. You asked for nothing. You risked everything." Vex shrugged. "It was the right thing to do." Corbin looked at him. "That is why we built this Armada. Not to conquer. To protect. To answer calls for help." He paused. "You are more like us than you know." Vex did not understand, but he felt something warm in his chest. Corbin turned toward the hatch. "Come. We will take you home. And we will honor our dead." They walked out together, leaving the Valiant to its centuries of silence. But outside, thousands of human ships waited. And for the first time in centuries, they had answered a call. The human ships did not attack. For 3 days, they remained in the system, surrounding the Valiant and Vex's small vessel. But they did not fire. They did not threaten. They simply studied, investigated, learned. Vex watched them through his viewport, still afraid but also curious. What were they doing? What would happen next? On the 3rd day, a shuttle approached. It docked with his ship, and Admiral Corbin returned. This time, he was alone. "May I come in?" he asked. Vex nodded, stepping aside. Corbin sat in the co-pilot's seat and looked around at the small vessel. It was humble compared to human ships. Simple. Functional. "You have been very brave," Corbin said quietly. "Braver than you know." Vex shook his head. "I was terrified. I still am." Bravery is not the absence of fear. It is acting despite it. Vex considered this. It made sense. Corbin continued. "We have studied your logs, your communications, your journey here. We know everything about you now." Vex tensed. And we have learned something important." He leaned forward. "You answered a distress signal. Even though you did not know who sent it. Even though it was centuries old. Even though it came from a forbidden zone. You came." Vex nodded weakly. "I just wanted to help." Corbin smiled. It was warm. Genuine. "That is why we existed. That is why we built this Armada. Not to conquer. To help. To protect. To answer calls for help." He looked at Vex. "You are more like us than you know." Vex did not understand at first. Then slowly, it dawned on him. The humans had built an Armada to answer distress signals. To protect those who could not protect themselves. To help strangers in need. He had done the same thing. On a smaller scale, yes. But the same thing. He had answered a call for help. Corbin saw the realization in his eyes. "Yes," the Admiral said. "That is what we do. That is who we are. And now we know, there are others like us in the galaxy." He stood. "We will take you home now. Your people need to know what you have done." The human fleet withdrew. Ship by ship, they powered down and departed, returning to their hidden bases across human space. Within days, the system was empty again, save for the Valiant, still drifting in silent memory. Vex watched them go, overwhelmed by what had happened. Corbin's final words echoed in his mind. "You are more like us than you know." Vex returned to his monitoring station. Grath and Torek were shocked to see him. They had assumed he was dead. He told them everything. The ship, the signal, the Armada, the Admiral. They did not believe him at first. Then he showed them the recordings, the images, the proof. Word spread. First across the station, then across the planet, then across the galaxy. The human Armada was real. It slept still, hidden in the darkness. But it could wake. And if you answered a distress signal, they might just answer back. Vex became a legend. The alien who woke the Death World as Armada and lived to tell the tale. His name was spoken in or across 100 worlds. Children learned about him in schools. Historians recorded his story for future generations. But Vex remained humble. When asked about his experience, he always said the same thing. "I just wanted to help. That is all." And across the galaxy, species whispered a new warning. Never send a signal you do not want answered. Because humans are listening. But also, if you answer a call for help, humans might just call you family. Years later, Vex received a message. It was from Admiral Corbin, old but still alive. "We have not forgotten you," it read. "If you ever need help, call. We will come." Vex smiled. He knew they would. Because that is what humans do.